Okay, so I'm gonna do some recording. Let's start. Okay, so first things first, let's just do a trick. Okay, so we open our editor using the options or select button, or the big black thing if you're using a PlayStation controller, which I do. Okay, so we want to end the clip by holding R1 and pressing down on R3, which is the right joystick. And then we'll rewind using L2, and we'll find the beginning. And again, we'll hold R1 and press L3, the left joystick, to get the beginning. Right, so we don't need all of that, so let's just go from here, the beginning here, and why not on the slide. And then we hold R1 and press triangle or Y on Xbox. And then still holding R1, we press left on the D-pad to go right back to the beginning and right to go to the end. Okay. Alright, so we're going to focus on 3 keyframes: camera, field of view, and play rate. And we select our keyframe using the D-pad left and right. Okay, so camera and play rate are the 2 we're going to mainly focus on in these videos, and sometimes field of view, and save all the other stuff for more advanced videos. So these are kind of set for more beginner to intermediate. Right, so I like to film with montage view on, and you press L1 for that, and that will automatically take you to free camera. Okay, you can use montage off. I just find it helps because once you've set a few camera keyframes, the rails between the keyframes helps you kind of navigate a little bit easier. Alright, so let's just film our trick. So first thing that we want to do is go to options, camera. Right. Now we have fisheye wide and fisheye standard, right? And you have your VX1000, which adds a nice kind of golden glow, right? That classic skateboard video look. Alright, for the sake of continuity in these clips, I'm going to turn that off. Okay, now fisheye wide and fisheye regular will capture the same sort of movement. Right? The difference is the field of view. Now fisheye wide field of view is 135 and fisheye regular is 125. Alright, so let's capture this kickflip, right? So what we want to do first is find kind of like the middle of the trick, otherwise known as the money shot. In my vocabulary, I like to get nice and low, right? Low as possible, and point the camera up. Okay, we'll hold R1 and tilt the camera slightly to the right with R2. And then we'll set, right, our first camera keyframe here. Then we'll go back to the beginning of the trick, right where he launches off, about there, and we'll tilt the camera to the left using L2 and set a keyframe. We'll follow along, find the landing, and tilt the camera to the right using R2. Right, so holding R1 and pressing R2 will tilt the camera. Right? And then we have it. We have our trick. Right? Very straightforward. Okay, now to set the play rate. Well, first, see, we've only got this much of the clip used, so the rest is kind of useless. We're not going to use the power slide, so let's go back and we'll set the end just a little bit to the end. Hold R1, R3. Okay. So on the first camera keyframe, we're going to go to play rate. We're going to set 1. 1 is 100%. Yep. Then we're going to go back to camera and go to the end. Again, 1. Okay, so we're going to use the smooth keys for all of these. Again, you can change them to linear and constant using holding R1 and pressing L1. But for the sake of all these videos, we're going to keep it on the default smooth keys. Now we're going to find the money shot again using the camera, holding R1 and just cycling through with the D-pad. Now we have the middle, the money shot. Now we're going to put our play rate here. And we're going to slow it down to 50%. 0.5. So now on each of the keyframes, they're the same keyframes, very straightforward. And then we will, so between these two keyframes, it is going to slow down. And between these two keyframes, it's going to speed up. Right? Very simple. Now, if you just set one keyframe as play rate, the whole thing will slow down, right? The whole thing, all of it. But using these, it speeds up and slows down. So it's just to capture that one part of the trick. It's especially important when you're doing like a grind and then you want to capture the flip out, or the flip into a grind, or whatever like that. Very straightforward. Right, is there anything else to go over at the moment? I don't believe there is. So what we will do is we will turn Fisheye off, because I like to skate with the default camera, and then we will go and get a rail and learn learn a little bit more. Okay, so we have our trick, and it's going to be a feeble. Just a very quick feeble on a very quick rail. Right? So we land it roughly in the middle, and it's going to go all the way down. It's going to be very quick. Okay, so we've set our end keyframe and our end and beginning of the clip, and we're going to hold R1 and press Y or triangle, and here is our clip. We don't really need much at the beginning, so we can probably set it to about there. And whatever. Okay, so next we're going to turn montage on by pressing L1. Okay, and then we're going to find our money shot, which is roughly like there, right where it sort of lands. Now the truck doesn't connect great. This isn't the best one, but it will do for now because it's got that nice dip, and that's what we really want to capture. So we'll go to camera and turn our fisheye on. Right, now there's lots of different ways you can film tricks like this. Right? You can film kind of level, and that's kind of the best way I think for smiths and feebles, is to kind of get level, similar to how you would film the 50-50. Because then you really get the dip, right? You want to see that dip between the rail and the nose of your board. Okay, so let's get our keyframes, which is roughly here. Okay, now because this trick is going to slide really quick, right, we want to capture it about there. Now just kind of move over a bit. Maybe go down a little bit. Okay, and then we'll move it there. So the important thing that we can see here is we can see the rail, right? It's taking up most of the bottom of the screen. And then we have our board in the middle, our feet and legs at the top. This is what we want to see. And then we'll go back to the beginning of the trick, and we will move the camera and tilt it so he's at the edge, right? It's at the edge, and then we'll put a keyframe there, R1 and down on the keypad. We'll cycle all along, and right about where he's landing, we'll put him on the edge of the screen and tilt the camera to the right, like that. He kind of goes off screen, so we can move it over a bit and get rid of that. And put it like that. So how is it looking? Okay, so we're losing the nose here, so we're going to move it slightly over and begin a bit of that tilt about there. There. See? Nice and clean. We're capturing the tilt because we're level with the rail. See? Now with tricks like this, I also like to follow them up with a standard zoom shot from afar. And in another video, I will show you how to do that. So for now, that's all you need to know, right? What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyframes. Now you could probably do it with less, and one way to do that would be to pull out a little bit, right? So from this point, you can follow it along. Now the landing, see, it's not quite straight, which is why we're moving the camera over a little bit more. Okay, and part of the reason we tilt the camera is you'll see in a second that really natural kind of movement of the camera. Right? It sort of bobbles around a bit. It makes it look really nice, right? That's what we're looking for in our clips. Now if you wanted to, you could also, once again, find that spot and set a play rate keyframe here as well. So in this instance, you would probably go for about there. Right? You put a play rate as 100% there, and maybe right before he lands it, about there as 100%. Then we would get our money shot, right? Which was about there. That's where we want to slow it down to. So it would slow it down to maybe 50% is a pretty good run-of-the-mill kind of play rate. Alright, let's go. Okay, captures it really nice. Now, I don't think it's necessary in a clip like this, because look, you can see what's happening, no problem. Okay, you don't really need to capture it too much. I see people overuse the play rate a little bit, and it can be good, but overusing it in your parts makes it difficult to keep the flow of the music. In a single clip, I can understand it, but it's not really necessary. Okay, so for our next trick, we have a Treflip Noseslide. Okay, the landing wasn't great, but again, we're just practicing here and just learning. Alright, so we've got our clip start and our clip finish. Okay, we can maybe put it a bit closer. That's good, and back a bit. Right when he kind of stands up on the board, that's great. That's all we need. Alright, so we'll turn montage on, we'll turn our camera lens on, and away we go. Now this trick has a trick into the Noseslide, right? So it's got the Treflip right there. So this is kind of what we want to focus on. So there's a few different ways you can film it. Okay? And working it out is kind of up to you. Okay? But for this trick, because we have a Treflip into the Noseslide, we want to see that Noseslide, that Treflip, so we want to get into it nice and close. Right? So we can be on this side. Right? This is one way to do it. Just for the sake of this, let's do that. And then over here. Right? So now we can see. Right, make it slow. That looks pretty good. Right? So that's not a bad angle we can do it from. Let's do that. But the problem here is we're not really seeing the rail. Right? So maybe we want it more about here, right? So let's just set a frame there and see what happens. Well, that's not too bad. Problem here though is the rail's kind of blocking the view. So what we'll do is we'll set our frame there, we'll use that one, follow it along, and set this one here on a slope. And maybe we'll just add another keyframe there. Why not? That's the 4 keyframes. Right? So there we have our Noseslide. Pretty good. Now we want to focus on this. So right there, where the Noseslide lands, we're going to put a 100% keyframe, and then back right when he launches, we're going to put our second frame. And right there, we're going to put up 50%. Now, as you can see, he's not centered. So what we're going to do is also go over to our camera and sort of move the camera over a bit and center it. Maybe a little bit more. Center it on that spot, right? Because that is our money shot right there. Let's have a look. Yes. Very good. So that is one way of recording. Okay, you're on the other side of the rail. And boom, right? So the other way is to remove all of these keyframes and go over to this side. Okay? And this way, we're going to tilt the camera at the beginning and capture it right there on a bit of an angle. So we're going to tilt it to the left and capture it there. And look, there's two of our keyframes. Now we just need to find the money shot. It's about there, right? Let's go from the beginning. Alright, so about there. We want to get his foot in a little bit more, I think. Look how, see, you can really see that board spin. So this camera angle is probably a little bit better, but both are valid. Both are valid. There's numerous ways you could do this, right? And even at the end, you could probably move it over a little bit more. Bam. See, very simple, right? So we're pretty low. We're not super low though. And the reason we're not super low is because we want to capture that spin and the catch to the Noseslide there. Okay. So you're not always getting super low for these tricks, but you want to be under it for sure. Because look, when it catches the Noseslide, we can see almost the entire board. We can see the whole rail in the shot, which is very important, and all the stairs, right? Great. Okay, so that's perfect, right? Alright, moving on. Okay, so for our next trick, we're going to do a blocks. Right, so from one side over there. So what do we want to see here? The board. Right. So we'll turn our montage on and we'll rewind it a bit and find our money shot, which is right kind of up there, I'd say. Alright, so looking here, you can see his ankles are completely broken and fucked up, and that just happens. There's nothing you can do about that. Okay, so it doesn't matter for this shot because we're going to be about here. You don't notice it so much. If you were going to film it from over here, though, you can see how fucked his ankles are going to be. This doesn't always happen, but it seems to happen on this rail quite a lot. Anyway, it's just something you have to deal with. So go into the fisheye and we'll find our spot. Now, this isn't exactly the spot, so we want to go a little bit over to where that wheel. So I could have done this better and gotten the wheel a bit cleaner, but it's okay. That doesn't look like it really levels out. Anyway, for the sake of this clip, it's fine. Normally I would redo this whole trick and get that wheel over like the other wheel is, right? Make it a lot cleaner. But anyway, let's move on. So again, we want to get that rail in the shot. And because it's a nice blunt, we want to showcase the angle of the board, right? Maybe we'll just go back a little bit. About there. Okay, so we want to be sort of facing the direction that the board is going to go, but low enough so we can see the whole rail and the angle that the board is on. And we're going to place our money shot keyframe there. Cycle back to the beginning. Tilt the camera and get our beginning. And we're going to go boom, and we're going to find our landing. And we're going to put the skater on the edge of the screen, tilt to the right slightly, and keyframe. 1, 2, 3. Very clean. Now you could kind of go back a little bit more if you wanted to. Okay, so continuing on, we have our 3 keyframes. And this is a very cut and dry trick. You don't need any slow motion for this at all. Now, even if you had like a kickflip coming into this, I would not slow it down at all. Because the kickflip can clearly be seen and isn't really worth capturing in slow motion. Right? If you were to do a trick out of it, you might get a bit lower on the rail. So if the trick was coming out of the blunt, put the camera closer to the end, like about here, right? Like probably a bit further back so you can see. Okay? Very, very simple. Very simple. Okay, so we have our trick in and our trick out. Okay, so it's a 5-0, it's great. So we're going to put it about here. Because we want to see the whole rail, and then we want to see the trick out. Very important. Now for the sake of this trick, we're going to tilt it a little bit more at the end. See the camera movement? This is what we want to go for. Okay. So we're seeing the clear, everything is very clear. And that's because we're back. Alright, so here we have an Overcrook. Very simple trick. Now recording it, you want to be on the other side, right, from where he starts. The side where the crook is over, the back tail is over the rail, like this, from this angle, right? And we want to capture the crook. We want to get pretty close, not too close. So this is a pretty good spot. Okay, so it's kind of centered, but not exactly centered. What is centered is the rail. Okay, you can see the whole rail. Maybe even there would be the spot. Okay, and then we're going to capture him on the other side. Tilt the camera to the right. Follow it along, right? So we want, and then slightly just tilt it. Okay, so the reason we're not too far away on this one is because we want to see this. We want to really get the angle of the crook in. And if you're too far back, you know, it just doesn't look as clean. It looks okay. It doesn't look bad or anything, but getting nice and close for a crook just really brings it to life. And you could probably, if you wanted to, get a little bit more of the board in before he hooks on with the crook, right? Yeah. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyframes. And you could probably do it with less if you wanted to. Very simple. And with your standard crook, again, you want to be on this side, right? So in this case, you want to see the same kind of thing. Very simple. Very simple. In this case, he's going to come from the same side as you are. So you kind of have to follow that along. See? Straightforward. 3 keyframes. Okay, so now we're going to do a 50-50. Okay, so it's a kickflip, 50-50 with a small nollie out. Kickflip, I can't remember. Yes, it is. Okay, so kind of like a Smith and a Feeble, you kind of want to be beside the rail, and especially with the 50-50 because that's really what's happening, right? The trucks are sitting nice and level, and that's what you want to capture, right? So there's a few different ways that you could film a 50-50. You can kind of get on top, a little bit above the rail, right, and show the top of the board. Yeah, that looks great. You know, it really does. So we'll just play around with this one for now. And let's just go back. Tilt it slightly, and then we'll follow it down, right? Okay, so we've kind of got our beginning keyframe there, but let's make a new one with a slight tilt and a little bit closer. Right, for that. Very, very good. Now you could pull out a little bit if you wanted to. Yeah. Not necessary though, really. Okay, looks great. Alright, so the other way would be to get sort of on the other side here, right? That's not sitting great, but again, we're just doing this to learn how to film, not to learn how to do tricks. Alright, so right here, right? So you can kind of see underneath the board, you can see the trucks sitting neatly on the rails, and you can see both wheels on each side of the trucks. Right? And the great thing about being on this side is he is on the other side of the rail, right? So when he comes over, I'm going to move that over a little bit. It looks more like he's coming toward us, right? And then when he follows along down the end, it just looks a little cleaner. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so when you're filming the kickflip, you want to make sure it can be seen. Okay, but it's not the highlight of the trick, right? The highlight here is that, the 50-50. Right, nice and good. And again, if you wanted to, you could get a bit above it. Just get a little bit above it. That looks great as well. It's really up to you how you want to film. I mean, if you want to get really experimental as well, you could get like right underneath it. Especially if the trucks are sitting really clean. You know. So if it was sitting really clean, you could follow it along like that. And it would look pretty good. You know, it really depends on your style, but these are just general tips, you know, for those who are kind of struggling or just want to improve. So that's a 50-50, pretty straightforward. And we also have a board slide. Okay, so we're going to do a 270 into a board slide and come out regular. Okay, so we want to capture that spin, right? That spin is definitely part of the focus. And the next focus is obviously our board slide. Now look, we've come onto the rail quite low, which is kind of bad, but also not too bad. It means we have plenty of space up here for our spin to show off, right? And then we're going to capture the board slide here, and it's going to slide forward. Okay, so we want to be down nice and low for a board slide. And we want to see kind of both the kicks. Okay, maybe tilt the camera a little bit there. Alright, so that's a great shot. It's not the best board slide, it's a bit wonky, but again, just for the sake of filming. Right? Okay, so now for the spin. Okay, we really wanted to capture all of that spin, so we need to follow it. Okay, so removed keyframes you don't need. Sometimes you'll set one just for the sake of it. Alright, so he's coming along and spinning, and we're losing him a bit, so we'll go up a bit here. Okay, so that is a bit sudden, right? It's a bit quick, so we need to delete one of those keyframes. Which one will we delete? Probably that one. So the one that was there, right? So you can undo and redo by holding R1 and pressing B or X, or circle and square, depending on what controller you're using. But yeah, see, that looks great. Right, let's do it in slow motion. Right, so we're seeing everything we want. We're getting that distance there, so that we can see the spin, capturing the board going forwards, right? And that's what we want to see, the board slide going forwards. You can do it at different angles, it depends on what you're tricking on. But for board slides in general on rails, forwards is the momentum you want to see. So the catch should be at that angle, going forward. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could go to play rate, and slow down the spin. So putting the 100% there on the Boardslide catch and right before he launches, and then finding kind of the midpoint of the spin, which would be about there, right? And going down to 0.5 to 50%. You can go lower if you want, it's really up to you. Boom. And if you really wanted to, you could take away all of the 100% and just go really slow, right? But in situations like that, follow shots up like this with like a single zoom shot. They just look great, and they follow up really well and show off the whole trick, the parts that you don't see with a fisheye like this. And again, we'll go over that in a different video. Okay, so here we have a double set. So this is the space that we're going to be moving between each trick, right? This is how much space we have to move, and we're going to keep it real. Right, so this is a nice long set, so we want to film from around the bottom of the stairs, to keep with the realism of having to move over to the next rail. So in order to do that, we're going to lift it up a little bit, and we're going to put a field of view change on at 115, just to get a little bit closer without actually being closer. Now this Smith on this particular rail has not got the dip we really want, but it will do. So we will find our spot, which will be maybe here. Let's go down a little bit, not too much, and we'll get level. Oops. Okay, pressing wrong. Okay, so there we go. There's our money shot. Go back to the beginning, tilt to the left. Okay, we just want to get this part right first. So he's a bit too over, so we're going to move it over a little bit. Okay, now when he lands, we want to follow along with him, right? And we're going to put him on the corner of on the edge of the screen. Tilt the camera so he's kind of along with the curve of the fisheye. Okay, so we're kind of missing the landing, so we're going to pull back a little bit there and remove the other keyframe. And then we're going to follow him along. In this instance, we're going to put him in the middle of the screen. So we capture him on the edge, he moves to the middle, and we're going to put the camera slightly to the right and edge it slightly that way. So we can see the whole rail right to left. And so the trick kind of happens in the middle of the screen. So we move it over a bit, down a bit, pull it up a bit too actually, and right there. So this rail is going from left to right, and this from right to left. And we're putting him right in the middle of the screen because that's where the action is going to be. Right? So you can see the kickflip very clearly. And that's all you need to do. Right? So when he lands, right, look how low we're getting. This is important. We want to capture that landing, and then we're going to stay nice and low until he launches. Then we're going to pick the camera up, capture the trick in the middle of the screen, and then boom. Now here we can also tilt it slightly to the right, and that will do an inertia type movement with the camera. See, the camera kind of pulls back if we look here, we can see the movement of the camera. So see the camera, it's in the same spot, but that movement, that slight tilt, added inertia automatically. It's really good for ending lines and movement shots like this. All you have to do is tilt the camera slightly, very, very easy. And you can see the camera move. Right. Not many keyframes, very fluid movement. And that's all you need to do. Let's watch it one more time. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keyframes. Right? Perfect. Then one last thing is that you can record a lot of your grinds on rails from the bottom of the stairs as well, like facing up like this. But what really looks good is when you're doing like a trick over the stairs, especially if you're doing it over the rail like this. Right? It looks really good from the bottom of the stairs. And again, you kind of want to capture that. So with shots like this, you're not really looking so much for your money shot in them, you're looking for the landing, and that's your spot that you're going to pivot from. So, I mean, he hits the stairs here, it's not the cleanest spot, so basically he lands about there. So this is the spot we're going to set our camera keyframe from. And we're going to go back to that. Right. Now, you can move the camera like this, a little bit, it's fine. Then you'll come along, and we want to get it in the middle there and just move it along. And then follow it. Like that. See? So getting nice and close to where he lands, that's what we want to see. It's kind of like the snap of the trick. Everything else is happening in all this massive space over here. And then we get the snap, just like we would with a grind, right? So this is the snap, and onwards he goes. Very simple. Alright, so that's the end of part 1, the rails section with the fisheye. Part 2, we will go over flat rails, and that will be a much shorter video, I promise. And then after that, another kind of longish video, maybe not as long as this one, but after that we will do lines, and lines obviously need a lot to go, a lot to talk. They have a lot to talk about, so you need a lot of time to go over them. Especially the different sort of realism sort of things that you can do with them. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the future updates. I will make this as comprehensive as I can, and after I've finished, I think it's 5 or 6 parts of the basic to intermediate, I'll get into some more advanced filming sort of stuff. And in the meantime, stay well, and again, thanks for watching.